Um, I was wondering, when do you exactly decide whether you go on stage with the boys or with the girl, with the male or with the female band?
Oh, well, it's sort of a thing I decided at breakfast.
Okay.
It became a... If you say things too far ahead of time, I think you can ruin an idea. If you give people time to prepare, you lose that energy.
All right.
You know, if people have a schedule, it's the same reason it's not good to have a set list on stage, because if you see a list of songs, as a musician, you're playing drums, you're like, okay, we got that one next, and we got that one next, and you start, you know, psyching yourself into that. But to me, just call the songs out on stage. None of us, I don't even know what we're gonna play next, you know, until at that second. So the energy is fresh. You know?
So you don't have a set list at all?
No, haven't, and I haven't in any of my bands. And so, like the very beginnings of my bands, we have them just at the beginning to get started. But it's the first thing I want to get rid of, because I want to have that energy to be fresh.
How about the fee? Do you pay the musicians if they play or not? It doesn't matter?
Yeah, well, they get paid no matter what, so that's the nice thing about it. So everyone feel a bit better about it.
Do they want to play, or do they think, okay, 2 days off is a nice thing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, some days I wish I had a day off. I wish like someone else could take my place. You know, I mean, when you go out on the road, you kind of, when you play every night, and especially to play a different show every night like we do, sometimes you wake up and like, man, I just don't feel like playing today, but you got to do it, and it becomes a new challenge. You got to psych yourself into it. So I like that. I like that challenge.
For me, it's hard to imagine, if I imagine standing on a stage, playing a song, I would think about what's the next song. And at this moment, I wouldn't be in this song I'm playing right now. When do you decide the next song without a set list?
The crowd tells me. The crowd tells me what to do. Like if I was playing, you know, for children in a school, you know, I will do what's appropriate for that room, for that crowd. An old folks home, you know, and in a crowd in a club, and also what kind of energy is. I mean, sometimes you walk into a club. You know, we were in a club yesterday in where were we? Lyon, France. You know, 2,000 people, but they were so quiet. It sounded like 50 people. You know, so I mean, they're kind of telling me what to do. They're telling me what to do. Like I either have a challenge to try to excite them, or to defy them. You know. Ignore that. You know, you present it like that. If you go play a show in South America, for example, the energy is just insanity. They're so loud and crazy. It hurts your ears. They're so loud and screaming, so energetic. It's kind of tough to play a quiet song on the acoustic guitar in that environment, you know. So you just, it's a great thing to do, because having no set list, I'm definitely with the crowd. We're working together. See, I think a lot of people don't know that. I mean, when you go to a show, you're participating. You're not just watching it like it's a movie. It should be participation, almost like church, you know. And so I like that, and then to feed off of their ideas, it helps me.
If a musician's putting out the record, the first thing we see is the album cover. So that vulture on your shoulder we see on Blunderbuss album, metaphorically speaking, is this the bird who is going to pick up the last dead pieces of rock and roll?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Well, yeah, I mean, vultures to me are just these beautiful birds. When I moved to Nashville, they're everywhere around where I live. I mean, you see them and they'll land on the house sometimes, and they're so gigantic. They're just massive birds. They're bigger than eagles. And but they represent death. I mean, they clean up. They're like the garbage collectors of the world, you know. They clean up all the dead bodies, and they're so associated with death. So when the artist Rob Jones showed me that idea, I thought, this is really great, because it's sort of me making friends with death, making death a romantic thing in my own brain, you know. So I really liked it. It just sort of summed up the whole album for me.
Let's step some years back. I read when you started playing the drums, you played along songs of Son House and Blind Willie McTell. I mean, these are songs sometimes without a drum part in it. So on one hand, it's logical to add a drum on it, but on the other hand, it's not the common way for an 11-year-old boy to learning how to play the drums.
Well, you know, when you get through the playing, you know, the Who and Led Zeppelin and the Yardbirds and all that, and you start digging deeper, you know, you go back to Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and things like that, you know, where you just dig deeper as a musician until you get back to acoustic blues almost.
Who showed you those blues or those tunes?
Well, I don't know. My brothers they were really into classic rock and roll bands like, you know, Rolling Stones and
Okay.
and the Who. So we you know, you listen to those records a lot. But if you really love music, you just keep digging. You want to know where those guys listen to, what were their favorite bands, who were they into, and you get to the blues. The English bands love the blues. They resold the blues to the world. Exactly. Thankfully, thank God they did, because they kept it alive. You know, which is the most important form of music, I think.
I think one of the coolest things about the music you do is listening to your music means not only listening to a great musician, it also means getting to know a person who's a huge music fan, like you told me. What was the most important discovery you ever made while your musical socialization?
Of how the blues is everything. The blues is all kinds of music, modern pop music. I mean, Nicki Minaj right now, and Lil Wayne, that's blues music. And that's important to understand. It doesn't matter. Everyone has their own style of saying it, but it's still the same stories. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. Whether it's fairy tales, it's still the same stories. Disney makes a new movie for children, but it's the same 1,000-year-old fairy tale. It's okay, it doesn't matter, because you're telling it with just a new style. The songs that I write or perform, it's just my way of doing it, you know. They're the same stories. I'm not going to pretend like I invented this story. You know, I don't think anybody else can either. You know, you can have a rap song nowadays that's totally about the rapper's individual, his life, but don't tell me that that story is any different from Robert Johnson or Blind Willie McTell, or what they were saying about their own struggles. It's very similar, just a different style. You know?
Different style and different feeling in a different decade.
Yeah,
right.
It was beautiful. You know, it's great.
The blues had a baby and they called it rock and roll. That's a song by Muddy Waters, you probably know, I think.
Yeah.
Let's go a step further. If rock and roll got pregnant, how would you call the baby?
Oh, it's hip hop, man. It's hip hop. Like that's definitely you know, breaking things down. You know, it goes in waves. Like things become complicated with big, you know, orchestras, and then it comes back down to really acoustic blues and one man versus the world, and back to big bands in the 40s, and then back to singers in the 50s, Patti Page, Elvis. And it gets simple, then it gets really complicated in progressive rock again, and it gets back down to punk rock, broken down again. Then, you know, pop music, then grunge, more simplified, more raw. Then it gets more FM radio and expanded, and then garage rock, turn of the century. You know, the White Stripes, the Strokes, the Hives, you know, more broken down. It just goes in waves all the time like that. Hip hop is a broken down version of earlier music, you know, simple, a drum beat, a voice, just speaking, not singing. It's a broken down version of soul music in a way. Blues before that.
I would like to talk about your album covers and video clips a little bit. I mean, there are always strong colors in it, intense shades of blue, green, red. It seems to be part of the concept. It is part of the concept. It's part of Jack White's visual world. You had those color concepts from the early beginning on, I think, and you have it in everything you do. Does that affinity in terms of colors and color concepts coming from your first education as an upholsterer?
Yeah, very much so. I got into all the architects when I was an upholsterer. Eero Saarinen, Ames, Arne Jacobsen, you know, and all those mid-century modern furniture designers who were also architects and designed buildings too. But they're powerful uses of color and shape and form following function, all of that. Reasons behind why things looked the way they did. A womb chair looked the way they did because of its all-encompassing nature, and the colors of the fabrics they used exemplified the how important of a structural, artistic sculpture a chair could be, for example. You know, when you present things, you know, if I make an album and I record music and I'm going to say and put it out, I have a choice. You know, I can just write the name of the record in white letters on a black background and that put it out, or I can take a photograph, or I can take a photograph that has possible multiple meanings to other people. I try to put things out there that can mean different things to other people, not just what I'm telling them. You know, that vulture might mean death to me, you know, but other people might look at the record cover and see something totally different. And I hope they do. That's my hope. You know, I think it's every artist's hope that people get more out of it than you can expect them to.
Why did you choose blue for the new album?
This came from a lot of, well, besides the blues music, the literalness of the blues music. I mean, the tools I was using. Like at Third Man Records, the tools in my upholstery shop, they were all yellow and black. So it got all the way to the uniforms being yellow, black, and white. The people at Third Man Records. And this is the same thing. The tools when I was working on this album was a very light blue Telecaster and a sort of silvery blue old public school amplifier I was playing through. And I just worked its way all the way up to what the band wears on stage with me now.
Do you also tell, like, do you have some rules you tell to the directors of the video clips, for example, who are shooting the clips? Like, you give them like that color concept, and you give them more free hand because they know what you more or less want?
Yeah, I like to tell them. I mean, but also I like to let them do their own thing. I mean, I learned early, like I said, I remember telling Michel Gondry when we did the Lego video. Yeah. I said, listen, everything in the band is only red, white, and black, and he was kind of saying, yeah, okay. I mean, you guys will be red, white, and black, but the rest of the city you're in won't be. They'll be made of all colors or Legos. I'm like, okay. I was kind of upset, but at the time, but I was like, he does what he's doing. You know, let him do whatever he wants to do. You just pick your battles and say, look, you offer ideas, but when you're working with other people, you got to let them do their thing. You know, let them work and understand. It doesn't matter. I always said, like, you can take what I'm doing and put, like, say if you took the White Stripes where everything is red, white, black, we're dressed in red, white, black. You can put us anywhere in front of this blue curtain, and we're still going to be the White Stripes, you know, whatever environment we're in. So it's not a loss of anything.
Let me ask you a very childish question. Maybe you have an adult answer to it. What's your favorite color and why?
Red is my favorite color because it's the most powerful. You know, I've given it up too. I gave it up for the White Stripes. I don't wear red. You know, I don't wear any.
They
red
told us
clothes.
today you don't want to see red.
I prefer not to. Well, I just gave that color to that band, that idea, that project, you know, that part of my life. So it's a funny thing to give away your favorite color.
Kill your babies.
What's that?
Kill your babies. Kill your darlings, like that.
Except I named my daughter Scarlet, so I still have the color around me.
All right. So I really like the slogan. The slogan, "Your furniture is not dead." When you had that upholstering business, in the last years, you proved constantly that rock and roll, that blues, that music at all, that songwriting is not dead at all. Do you sometimes think about renovating chairs, renovating furniture, when you are renovating rock music? Because I think that's the thing you do right now.
Well, that's interesting, yeah. Yeah. When I had an upholstery shop, some people would use the phrase reupholstery, which is a strange word, to reupholster a couch. Not upholster one, but to redo it. And a lot of the stuff we were doing was taking furniture that had already been covered and recovering it. And you're sort of working with other people's, you know, ideas, other people's patterns. If I were to redo this chair, I'd have to follow this pattern, or this stitch, the sewing machine, how whoever designed this did it. We could try to redo it and redesign it, but the best thing to do would probably just do the way they did it. So you're working in other people's art forms, other people's design. So you learn a lot about how you would do it yourself if you had been the one who did it first. So I learned a lot about that. So as a songwriter, coming out of that trade.
So you can see something like that also, like in a blues song, which you see, this is the line, Muddy Waters was falling, or Robert Johnson was falling.
Exactly, because it's easy to just do what they did. It's easy to redo it and recreate something. You know, that's not a challenge. But to put your own style and twist on and make it new and fresh, like it was recorded this week, that is the goal I have. To not emulate something from the past, but to make something sound like it was recorded this week. And if you can trick people into understanding that is also the blues, but it feels fresh and right now and not something recreated, then getting somewhere. I
think that's what you did with like I'm Shaking, like with this Little Willie John song. How did you discover this song and how did you work on it? I think you did it with a lot of respect, but also with a lot of coolness. I mean, that's the art.
Thank you. That was the challenge. Yeah, someone left a CD, a mixed CD at my house. It was like Detroit Soul. I don't know who left it there, but the first song in there was I'm Shaking, Little Willie John. And I thought it was great. It was just the first day in the studio that we had all females in the studio. So I hadn't worked with all of them yet. I said, well, a good idea is to just cover another song to get started. Just take a cover song, anything, and try it, and then we'll work on my songs afterwards. So that was the first thing we recorded with. I said, let's try I'm Shaking. So we learned it together. It was supposed to just be to get the ball rolling and then we would move on. But it turned out so good, I thought we should put it on the record because people really loved listening it, played back.
Mm. To me, the leading instruments on blunderbuss is on one hand the piano, on the other hand the guitar. So these are two instruments with totally different characters.
Yeah.
To which instrument do you have right now the closer relationship?
I really like the piano a lot. It feels strong, you know, it's powerful. Either of those instruments, if you put them on a recording, someone will say it's a piano-based song. Like I could have, you know, 16-piece orchestra, and clarinets, and, you know, horns, trumpets, and all that stuff. And if you put a piano on there, people will say it's a piano-based song, even if you add it at the end. Same thing with the guitar. Those two instruments are so powerful, they just take over. They become the lead. So you have to be careful with them, you know. A lot of time, when this first album came out, when the album first came out, people were saying, oh, most of it's a piano. It's like a piano-based album. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, a lot of these songs have guitar solos and are guitar-based songs. They started on the guitar, so, but people heard piano in there, so they changed their mind about it. It's funny. I love that. That's great.
You said once making music to you is like leading a war, something like that. These are strong words, I think. Are you talking about making music, or is this sentence in terms of the music business?
When you're performing on stage, or if you're writing and recording and writing and all that, you are fighting. I feel like I'm fighting. I'm fighting restrictions, challenges every 5 seconds, and preconceptions, fighting yourself, trying to come up with something from yourself that you haven't done before. All of it is struggle and fight, and I think that's the best music, the best art that we love, the best films. Art comes from struggle. It has to. It's not an easy thing. It's not about taking it easy. You know? It's not about getting to a point in your life as an artist where you just get to wake up and have a nice coffee and start painting and look at a beautiful ocean view. That's not art. It's not struggle. So that's what I'm always doing, is trying to create fights, get involved in battles like that.